Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Since it is after a few weeks that we are going back to the Sutta teaching session, so let me summarize what we were discussing. So we have taken the first Sutta of Digha Nikaya, that is the Brahmajala Sutta, and there was a background story that another ascetic, kind of a wandering ascetic, was trying to criticize the Buddha and the Sangha while they were traveling, and his name is called Suppiya, and again his follower, kind of apprentice, called Brahmadatta, is on the other hand trying to defend Buddha and the Sangha. Now basically at this point the Sangha also has basically noticed this event and later informed this to the Buddha, and there Buddha particularly has mentioned that when someone is criticizing, that we should not become really disturbed by that. Rather, we should try to maintain a calm mind, relaxed mind, and we should be vigilant what they are really pointing out. If it is a valid criticism, then we can correct ourselves, and if it is not, we can properly defend it, or we can properly present it in a more diplomatic manner without going into arguments. On the other hand, when someone is praising, again we should not get elated. In such case, then we are unable to understand what they are really pointing out. And if we are able to maintain a fairly even mind, then we are able to understand whether their appreciations, praise is really a valid, well-grounded praise, or is it an exaggeration. So basically, Buddha's point here is, on the other hand, that they are, whenever typical worldly people are praising the Buddha, particularly, they are merely using certain moral aspect. And then Buddha going into explaining the morality in detail, where the short section on morality, middle section on morality, large section on morality, all are explained in this sutta. So while going through all that explanation, again and again Buddha highlights that people in the world taking these moral conduct, moral standards, they try to praise the Buddha. But according to Buddha, that is not the real recognition of the Buddha. Because if someone is telling, say for example, that Buddha is someone who does not kill animals, so that is a trivial thing to praise the Buddha. But there are more and more sublime qualities, sublime wisdom-related activities which are more worthy of praising the Buddha. So those are the ones particularly now Buddha is going to explain. And there also he didn't go to explain all the good qualities, rather a very particular theme he is explaining in this Brahmajala Sutta. That is where a spiritual group, a spiritual person, when they are trying to understand certain spiritual themes, spiritual teachings, unfortunately they can get stuck in certain wrong views. So that's in a way fairly an unfortunate situation, because it's very rarely people are trying to understand certain spiritual aspects, because the vast majority are fairly engulfed with various sensuality related activities. So that has become their main concern, that has become their main priority. So but when the majority is doing that, following that, there may be some people who are interested in their spiritual upliftment, spiritual growth, and they are the ones actually trying to develop certain good qualities. And unfortunately, if this group also get into stuck in certain wrong views, and they ultimately even stuck there, completely misled by those wrong views, then that's really a miserable situation. So that is the theme that Buddha highlights here. Okay, these kinds of pitfalls are there. These kinds of wrong views are there. So now I am going to explain all that. So each and every wrong view I have understood. So Buddha pointing out, okay, the Tathagata, the thus gone one, the Buddha has understood all this. And he understood their peril, he understood their disadvantages, the danger. And if someone is following those, so what would be the repercussion? So that also I have understood. So then I was able to go beyond all these wrong views. And so then he went on to summarize all these wrong views. There are 62 wrong views explained in this sutta. And now actually we have already covered all these 62 views in brief. And with respect to the past, there are 18 wrong views. And there are 4 wrong views are there with respect to Sasatavada. That means Ekatta Satsatavada. Continuously someone is available, someone is ever existing. So they are called eternalists. And then partly eternalist and partly non-eternalist. That means someone is existing but someone is not existing eternally. So there are such 4 wrong views. And then finitists and infinitists, talking about the finite space or infinite space. They are infinite soul or finite soul. So there are such groups, and there are also 4 such wrong views. And then the Amaravikepavada, where the people who doesn't give a clear-cut answer, doesn't give a steadfast, direct answer, rather simply going this way, that way, kind of endless hedging is something that they are using. So there are 4 of such wrong views. And then completely opposite to the Patissamuppada, what we know from the Buddha's teaching, there are people who simply say everything happens by mere chance. It is called Adicca Samuppannavada. And such 2 wrong views are also there. So all these 5 groups actually are categorized into the speculators about the past. Altogether 18 wrong views are there. And then Aparanta Kappika, that means speculators about the future. So what would happen after the death? So in that sense also there are altogether 44 wrong views. And they are Sanyivada, means that after the death there is a conscious existence. Kind of a survival is there after the death. And again that survival, that whatever the soul survived is conscious. And there are altogether 16 such wrong views. And again Asanyivada, non-conscious post-mortem survival. So they say even though after the death the soul survives, it is unconscious. So there are such 8 wrong views. And then Neva Sanyi Nasanyivada, that means it is neither conscious nor unconscious. Neither conscious nor non-conscious. So such altogether 8 wrong views are there. And then another interesting area comes, that is called the Uchchedavada, annihilationism. And in that particular group is in a way fairly interesting, because even nowadays there are people who are materialists. They simply believe in the body, the materiality, and they don't talk about the mental side. And they simply think, okay, at the end of the death, everything ceases. Whoever the being existed till the death, going to be completely ceased. And that is how this different annihilationism is getting to the sort of different tastes. Someone says, okay, this is just the body is the self and that is going to end at the death. Some others say, okay, other than the body there is another self which is a godly kind of self. and that is what ultimately going to end. Some others say, okay, it is a kind of a more refined materials soul, that is the one going to end. And some others say, okay, it is not. There is a even more refined souls which actually one has to practice in order to achieve it. If that is available, then that is going to end. So that is how the annihilation happened. So likewise, there are 7 such wrong views included in this annihilationism. And then last, actually, another interesting area we already discussed, Ditta Dhamma Nibbanavada, thinking that the supreme nirvana available here and now. An interesting point here is it appears like, even close to the Buddha's teaching, but it is completely different, where this group particularly believe in a soul. There is an individual, there is a person. That person, that individual, attaining Nibbana here and now, and that person is the one existing or attaining Nibbana. The individuality, the person, a being, a Satta, is particularly highlighted, and that Satta, that being, is the one attaining Nibbana. So there are such wrong views also. So these actually now we already have discussed, and now we can get into the other areas. After discussing all these, each and every wrong view, Buddha particularly highlight that Buddha has understood all this. And he understood the peril, he understood the danger, and he was able to overcome all these wrong views. And as a result of that, so he was able to go beyond all these wrong views. These monks are those matters, profound, hard to see, hard to understand, peaceful, excellent, beyond mere thought, subtle, to be experienced by the wise, which the Tathagata, having realized them by his own super knowledge, proclaims, and about which those who would truthfully praise the Tathagata would rightly speak. So after explaining each and every wrong view, so Buddha mentioned, so what happened to a person who has grasped it? And what would be his destination? So what are the disadvantages? By knowing those disadvantages, Buddha was able to completely relinquish his mind, relieve his mind from all such wrong views. Basically, he was able to realize Dhamma, realize Nibbana, which is completely free from any wrong view. And so the Tathagata is liberated without remainder, without attachment, without grasping. And this is the extremely important point that Buddha say, the Buddha to be praised. So basically, as I explained before, so this is a kind of a minority that people are going through certain spiritual search. But unfortunately, they also stuck with wrong views. And Buddha, on the other hand, has seen the danger, was able to penetrate all these wrong views, abandon all these wrong views, and he was able to liberate. And this is the most important part, a kind of a reason that Buddha to be praised. Now Buddha explains how these wrong views in a way happen. Now, say for example, Sassatavada. Altogether, there are 4 Sassatavada. And those people, whoever the Brahmins, whoever the ascetics, whenever they are proclaiming it, they actually wrongly see it. Actually, they don't have proper understanding. Ajanatang, apassatang, vedayitang, tanha gatanang, paritassita vippandita meva. So the point is, so not knowing the truth, they basically not seeing the truth, but they experience something, they sort of feel something, and to that feeling they get attached. And now, as a result of that, they are going through certain amount of an agitation, a worry, maybe a vacillation, and then they basically immersed in that craving, and based upon that they proclaim, okay, this is the view, this is the correct view. So now we all can understand that when we see a beautiful image, beautiful picture, that we get attracted. We like it, we love it, we want to have a photo of it, we want to maybe purchase it, we want to keep it in our bedroom, so whatever it is. So basically we love it, we like it, so we get attached to it. Now similarly, when we have certain view in our mind, that is also something that we grasp, what we call the Ditthi Upadana. So whenever we have certain kind of an understanding, certain kind of a view, that is also probably a cause of grasping. So if we grasp that, so that can become a kind of a strong grasping. And sometimes people can relinquish their material belongings, but their view, whatever their belief, and that is very difficult to abandon. That is something they strongly hold. And sometimes they even want to convince that to the others. They therefore maybe starting a class, starting a preaching, and they want to propagate that view. So likewise, so they are strongly believing it, strongly adhering to it. Now, why they do it? Because there is a kind of a thrill, there is a kind of an entertainment, there is a kind of a delight. In one sense, it is because it promotes a self, it promotes an individual, it promotes my view, this is my idea, this is my understanding, this is my belief, promoting a self, an ego. That is another sort of bottleneck, or is another reason why people are adhering to it. And this, whatever the view also has some sort of a taste, so that's why it is more appealing, and that's why they are strongly holding it. And so based on that craving, they are then proclaiming, okay, this is what I know, this is the truth, this is what I believe, also you also should understand it, you also should believe it. So likewise they start preaching. So again and again Buddha highlight this point to all the 62 wrong views. So all the 62 again and again Buddha highlights here in this section, mentioning that all these are because of the not knowing. They do not know, they do not see. But still by going through it, examining it, they get some sort of a delight. So they get attached to it, they crave it, and then they hold it, and then they proclaim it. So all these 62 views, therefore Buddha mentioned, melt the feeling of those who do not know and see, the worry and vacillation of those immersed in craving. So because of ignorance, because of not knowing, they can't see the reality. Whatever the thought, whatever the view, whatever the, say, understanding they have, they simply grasp it, hold it, and they have certain delight in it. Now they are craving for it. Based on that, now they are established in it thoroughly, each and every wrong view. And then another section completely explaining each and every wrong view is because of contact. Tadapi passa paccaya. It is conditioned by contact. When those ascetics and Brahmins who are eternalists proclaim the eternity of the self and the world in 4 ways, that is conditioned by contact. Now here, typically we think the contact to happen, always something tangible has to get contact. But even a thought whenever appear in the mind. So typically it is mentioned that it can have certain taste. It is an object to the mind. So it is coming to the field of the mind, field of the consciousness. Now it is in contact with the mind. So sometimes it is mentioned Namarupaccha Passo. Typically we say Namarupaccha Salayatana, Salayatana Paccha Passo. And certain suttas are there, so they don't much mention about the Salayatana, Namarupaccha Passo. So when there is name and form tangled in the consciousness, so that can cause contact. So that is the one ultimately producing some sort of thinking, proliferation, and that is what going to be grasped. But when it comes to the root, we can say contact is a certain point. Contact is a fair root cause. So each and every wrong view, Buddha highlights, it is conditioned by contact, conditioned by contact, conditioned by contact. Tadapi passapaccha, tadapi passapaccha. I can remember most venerable Katakurunde Jnananda Thero highlights this point. He mentioned that Buddha denies all these wrong views, particularly mentioning all these wrong views are conditioned by contact. So basically means that Buddha, by realizing Nibbana, he was able to go beyond contact. And on the other hand, contact has two forms, what we call as the Adivachana Sampassa and Patika Sampassa. So Adivachana Sampassa particularly mean that the knowing part, the recognizing part of the contact. Patika Sampassa is the friction part, the physical contact part. So all these two are essential for contact to happen. So contact basically has two of these, in a way, kind of two components. Both these components are necessary for contact to happen. And Buddha explained these things, particularly in the Mahanidana Sutta, and explaining the contact. And in certain other suttas, Buddha say, okay, you have to go beyond contact, passa nirodha. So what typically happens is we are again and again jumping from contact to arising of the contact, what we call the passa and passa samudaya. Probably you can remember Majjhya Sutta. The Majjhya Sutta, one definition given for the two ends and the middle is the two ends are the passa and the passa samudaya. That means the contact and the arising of the contact. What is in the middle is the passa nirodha, the cessation of the contact. Unfortunately, what happened is, because of the function of craving, we can't see the passa nirodha, we can't see the cessation of contact. What we do is constantly attach with some form of contact. Whenever it is sort of about to cease, we immediately try to arise another contact. Immediately we are forming another contact. Immediately we are jumping to a contact which is basically in the arising side. Say for example, you are watching a movie. Now you know it is going to end. So you feel bored because you can understand what's going to happen, and you feel bored, everything, and what you simply do, you probably quickly change the channel and go to another interesting episode. Say it is another exciting kind of a teledrama. Now you are watching it. And while you are watching it, if you again feel a little bored and maybe it's coming to an end of the episode, you change the channel and jump to another kind of a video. So what we do is again and again, we are sort of enjoying some sort of contact. We are going through certain contact, but we don't see its completeness, we don't see its complete lifespan In between, we jumped to a new contact. We jump to a new contact. So never see the cessation of contact. Cessation of contact may be boring. Cessation of contact may be appear like unauspicious. So we constantly jump from contact to origination of contact. Contact to a new contact's origination. A new contact arising. So these are the two ends we often associate. Not knowing the middle, that middle is the cessation of contact. So Buddha was able to particularly point out this cessation of contact, Pasanirodha. And a path for that, so that is the Pasanirodha Gamini Patipada, that is nothing but the Noble Eightfold Path. So if one is able to practice Noble Eightfold Path, so that means that one can go beyond the contact. So basically, all these wrong views, Buddha deny, telling, okay, they are conditioned by contact. So, and then, further, after telling that, he further points out, Anyatra passa parisamvedi santiti netantanam vijjati. None of these wrong views are possible if there is no contact. Without contact is impossible. So that's a kind of further confirming that the contact is one essential part in order for these views to generate, in order for these views to sort of grasp, to happen. Without contact, none of these wrong views could arise. And then, after pointing out that, how these wrong views are causing suffering in a conditioned manner, how one grasps a kind of a contact. Even before that, Buddha say, okay, someone experience some sort of feelings, and as a result of that, repeatedly that contact happens, and again experience that, again go through certain feelings, and now he grasps it. And when those feelings are there, they have a kind of a craving, and then craving is conditioned in the clinging, the grasping, and then this grasping causes becoming. So now he adhere to that clinging. Now he represent that clinging, and he stand for that sort of that view. Say, for example, you assume that you don't much believe in a particular, say, assume that we'll take a simple example. Say, for example, that someone would say there is a God and who has certain omniscient powers, and he is going to protect me after the death. And you didn't have such a belief at the beginning. Suppose that someone is trying to convince you and again preaching you and trying to prove it, and you slowly start thinking about it, and probably he may even give some gifts to motivate you, to promote that view, and you even understand, okay, this is really working. I'm feeling confident now. I think there is a God, definitely going to protect me. So slowly you start associating that view, and that association gives you some sort of confidence, and you feel that God is always with you, helping you, being with you. And slowly you get attached to that view, and you are now holding it, and now you become that view. Now you are standing for that view. You simply believe, not only believe, now it is something that you strongly hold, and now all your thinking, all your behavior is influenced by that view. And becoming conditions birth, and now you are born to that view. You are representing that view, you are standing for that view. You can even argue with another person based on that view, and even can get into quarrel if someone is against that view. So this is how Buddha mentioned how all these are in a way conditionally arisen. Sabbete chahi passayatanehi pussa pussa parisangvedenti. Tesang vedana pacca tanha tanha pacca upadana upadana pacca baho baho pacca jati jati pacca jaramaranang soka parideo dukkha domana supayasa sambhavanti. So this is the pattern that probably you all know, that the pattern of how Buddha explained about the Patissamuppada. So whenever we are open to a particular thought, particular view, so we start reading about it, we start listening about it, we may even see something which is trying to prove that view. So all these, whatever sense contact is now slowly producing some sort of a feeling, the contact and then the feeling, and to that feeling we may like, we want it now, we desire that feeling, we further desire that, now we are grasping it, now we are holding it, now we stand for that view. And in case someone is against it, then we suffer, we get irritated, we want to go against him, and we want to defend our view, and we are in trouble in case they are more strong and then we being defeated. So all these quarrels, all these disputes, conflicts can happen. So on the other hand, Buddha mentioned, in case if one is able to understand all this conditionality, all this causal arising of this situation, and he then would be able to abandon all this grasping. Rather than keeping a view on the mind, rather than holding an idea in one's mind, thinking again and again about it, rather one can stop thinking about it. So basically, abandon all wrong views. So the mind feel relaxed, mind feel calm, mind feel quiet. Basically, it is relaxed. So when you are holding a view, a particular dogmatic idea, so mind become crowded. So mind is particularly influenced by that view. But if you are able to simply abandon all that, that means the mind is relaxed, very lighter. You may feel very lighter, experiencing some sort of inner joy, because nothing is there to sort of influence the mind. So mind has released. So Buddha mentioned here, Channam Passayatananang Samudayancha Attagamancha Asadancha Adinavancha Nissaranancha Yathabhutam Pajanati Ayang Imehi Sabbe Heva Uttariterang Pajanati. So knowing how all these conditioned phenomena are coming to being, and unfortunately because of the ignorance we are grasping it, holding it and causing a lot of suffering. So now, as a result of the practice of insight, so one starts abandoning all these wrong views, and now he feels confident, now he feels relaxed, relieved, and basically, so this is how Buddha say the kind of deliverance from them, deliverance from wrong views. Now, as a conclusion, so here Buddha further summarize, explaining all these different wrong views. It is like a Mara putting all his tactics, and beings are being trapped in all these 62 views. It's like a skilled fisherman who is putting a net onto a group of fish, and no one could escape. So likewise, these 62 views are wrong views, and they are being sort of very much like a net of the Mara, and beings are trapped in these wrong views. Actually, in the Sinhala translation, the translators try to inform that these 62 views, something that Buddha is explaining, so that is like a skillful person who who is putting the net so that beings are trying to be escaped. But on the other hand, in the English translation, and particularly Venerable Analio points out these 62 views are in a way the traps of the Mara. So net of views means Mara's views, kind of a traps, kind of snares. People get trapped, people get caught. And the given example, the simile also highlights something like that. So Buddha say, skilled fisherman or his apprentice might cover a small piece of water with a fine mesh net, thinking whatever larger creatures there may be in this water, they are all trapped in the net, caught and held in the net. So it is with all these, they are trapped and caught in this net. So there are 62 such views, and mostly whoever trying to hold any kind of a view are basically trapped. So we can say the fisherman is actually the Mara, representing the Mara, the evil one. So not allowing the beings to, say, go through the samsara. So there are these traps, snares available. Ultimately they get hooked up, they get caught up, and they are unable to escape. And now Buddha give another point here, highlights another point here, telling that after he realizing all these wrong views, he has abandoned all that, and now he does not identify with anything, and his becoming is cut. There is no clinging at all. There is no bhava at all. There is no becoming at all in him. But the body exists. So since by seeing that body, noting that body, people are saying, okay, this is the Buddha. So Buddha is going on village Pindapata, Buddha is preaching, or Buddha is advising someone. So because we can see his body. But at the end of the passing away, there is no any kind of a trace of anything. So that is his final parinibbana. There is nothing exists. As long as the body subsists, devas and humans will see him. But at the breaking of the body and the exhaustion of the lifespan, devas and humans will see him no more. So basically, the point is that even though we see a body, Buddha does not identify that body. So it's very difficult to explain even that. So what's the point highlighted here? As far as I can understand, now typically what happens is, suppose there's a person. So he has a name, he has a clan, he has a nationality, he has a passport, and he has his representation. He may have, say, his occupation. And through all that, he becomes a person. I am so and so. This is my passport number. This is my nationality. This is my education. So all that helps him to build an ego, build a person. And his body is one component of that. He is using his body to build a person, a personality. But when one becomes an arahant, he doesn't identify with any of these. He doesn't use the form aggregate, feelings, perceptions, formations or consciousness to hold, to identify with. But still we can see a body. The body exists because that is, the five aggregates are still continuing, but there is no grasping. That's the interesting part. Even though we call him as an arahant, say Venerable Sariputta, we may call him as Venerable Sariputta, but that doesn't represent any sort of a person, an individual. Because that arahant does not identify with any of those aggregates. So it's a very interesting point. Even though the external people are pointing out that Arahant with a name, actually there is no person right now. There is no individual even right now while that Arahant is still living. He has attained the Sopadisesa Parinibbana, so complete abandonment of all the kilesas, all the defilements. But the aggregates are still continuing, but there is no grasping. But at the final Parinibbana, so he attains the Anupadisesa Parinibbana, Anupadisesa Nibbana, Dhatu. So all the aggregates are now completely ceased. This is a very subtle point, and here Buddha pointing out that, and after completing the sutta, so Venerable Ananda was delighted. He was listening to this sutta, and he's asking, so Bhante, what would be the proper name for this sutta? Bhante, ko namo ayang dham pariyayo. So he's asking a good name for this sutta. Tasmatiya tvang ananda imang dhamma pariyayang attha jalantipi mandhareti dhamma jalantipi mandharehi Brahmajalantipi nang dharehi ditti dalantipi nam dharehi anuttaro sangama vijayotipi nang dharehi. So Buddha points out, okay Ananda, you can name it as a net of a Dhamma as the net of advantage, the net of the Dhamma, the supreme net, the net of views, or as the incomparable victory of the battle, victory in battle. So incomparable victory in battle. So this is also a very interesting point. Now, as we pointed out earlier, so we understood that it's a very small group who are interested of the spirituality. Vast majority are trapped in the sensuality. So that means they are also particularly trapped. The vast majority is trapped. But even the minority who is interested in spirituality, they also get trapped because of these wrong views. If someone is able to abandon all those wrong views, he is the winner. He has this incomparable victory in the battle. So you can see by pointing out these 62 views, whoever interested in certain spiritual growth can see, can check, am I trapped in any of these wrong views? If so, one would be able to relieve from such views, abandon those wrong views, and keep the mind without any kind of an attachment, holding, grasping. So there is a possibility to freedom. And after explanation of all this, it is mentioned, Dasa sahasi lokadhatu akampithati. So the 10,000 world system shook. In a way we can understand, okay, because people, whoever the beings are basically trapped in the whole, this sansaric existence. So pointing out all these subtle points, so Buddha is now showing how to abandon all these wrong views and go through them, penetrate them, and to have the complete deliverance. Okay, we'll try to have another summary of these wrong views and pointing out some more possible wrong views, because sometimes we might get the impression that these 62 views are explained here and those are the only wrong views have. But certain teachers highlight that Buddha has pointed out some other wrong views, how depending on their behavior, depending on a certain person's their belief, certain behaviors, and we'll try to discuss them also so that we get a thorough understanding about wrong views. Okay, with that I like to conclude today's Sutta teaching session, and now I like to open the session for questions. Yeah, you have any question?
Yes. Well,
okay, we have a question from our side. I invite Venerable Dhammavijita to raise his question.
Excuse me, Bhante. Thank you for your teaching. I just wanted to really add a couple of things from my studies on this sutta and see your response.
Good.
So the Buddha's, his Dhamma that he discovered is based on reality. It is coming from reality, whereas the views are all not. They're not reality. And it's, I found a definition of view is from a dictionary is it's an opinion or judgment colored by the feeling or bias of its holder. So it's based on a feeling or some bias that somebody learns or hears about, and many of these views are taking a partial reality and then saying this is reality. But I just wanted to make this other way of looking at, to share this other way of looking at view and reality itself. So the Buddha's teaching was an expression of reality, but it's not reality itself. So say finger pointing to the moon. So the finger pointing to the moon is a sense of, it has a sense of self to it. It's my, I'm pointing to the moon, and it's a concept, like the teaching, the Buddha's teaching is a concept that points to reality, the moon. So the view isn't the reality. Like Buddha, you could say, we could argue the Buddha's view of things. It's not a view, it's actually trying to show us, point us to reality. But if we cling to the Buddha's teaching, we also don't get to experience reality.
Correct.
So you get my point?
Yeah. So that's why in the now this example, this simile I heard, I think it's coming from the Mahayana tradition or Zen tradition.
I think so,
yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
So it's interesting point that someone is pointing the moon through his finger. So if someone is trying to find out the moon on the fingertip, that's wrong approach. But he has to look at the direction. So that finger is pointing to a direction. So we have to look into that direction, and there we find the moon. That's a very interesting point. So as you said, the Dhamma is such kind of points, kind of pointings, such kind of pointers, or such kind of directions given. By following those directions, then we may be able to reach the reality. That is one explanation. And on the other hand, probably you can remember in the Alagadubama Sutta, Buddha points out Dhamma as a raft. Kullupamang bhikkave dhamman desisami nittaranattaya no gahanattaya. Monks, I am explaining this Dhamma as a raft. It is for you to cross over, not to hold on. So Dhamma is a raft, isn't it? So that raft is not the reality, as you said, no? Isn't it? In a way, right. You can argue, okay, it is the reality, but anyway, so pointing out Dhamma as the raft, so we are using it to cross to the other shore, then we can say that maybe the other shore may be the reality. Nibbana may be the reality, but in order to attain Nibbana, in order to realize Nibbana, so Dhamma helps, Dhamma is the raft. So we are able to go through, use the raft so that we are crossing to the other shore using the raft. And once we crossed over, then we don't need the raft because the purpose is done.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we get to the other shore and we're still carrying the raft, then we're still not awakened yet.
Exactly.
We actually, in a way, we didn't make it to the other shore.
Exactly. So and we are still holding.
Yeah, still holding on to the idea.
Correct.
The concept.
Yeah. Definitely. So that Buddha actually asked in the Alagadubama Sutta, Buddha asked this question. He asked, okay, monks, so if someone to say, so after cross to the other shore, if someone to say this raft was really helpful, so let me hold this raft on my head and I am carrying it. Are they doing the correct thing? Then monks say no. So then what is the thing to do? Then he simply says they have to abandon the raft. Maybe they can keep it on the bank, the river bank, or may simply push it away so that someone else might use it.
Yes.
So likewise, whatever the way that they have to abandon it, relinquish it, not holding it.
Yes.
Nissaranathaya, no gahanathaya. So Buddha particularly highlighted Nissaranathaya. It is for the crossing over to the other shore, no gahanathaya, not for holding.
Yes.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that one has to abandon it before one crosses to the other shore. That is also ignorant.
Yes.
Right? Because before the purpose is completed, if someone is trying to abandon it, that is also not the goal. Then he can't achieve the goal.
Yes.
So one has to maintain it, someone has to use it properly, so that one can make the proper purpose from it, and once it is completed only, then that means when someone attained the full enlightenment, only that raft has to be abandoned.
Yes. And also you could say that the teachings aren't for continued study. Like we if we just continually study, then that's not using the raft for its purpose. The purpose is to realize.
Practice. Yeah, to realize but there's another point also. Now, by studying Dhamma, we can have the advantage of understanding certain subtle points.
Yes.
And there may be certain teachings that we didn't understand in one way, but now we understand in a proper, more profound way.
Yes.
So those advantages are there.
Yes.
And again, depending on our realization or depending on our understanding, so we may see certain subtle aspects available in the Dhamma, which we haven't seen before.
Yes.
And again, as we develop the wisdom, so the indication of that development is something that we are more and more able to understand deep Dhamma. So that is highlighted in certain suttas. So if you feel that, okay, I didn't understand this sort of things, but now I understand all this deep Dhamma. So that's Buddha prays, okay, now that indicates some kind of a progress.
Yes.
So therefore, I can't agree thinking that, okay, this is not for studies, not for mere studies.
Yes.
That is true.
Right.
I mean, by studying, we should apply it to our practice. Definitely. Not simply for intellectual, kind of a discussion and argument. That is not the purpose.
That was what I was pointing to.
Exactly.
Because I think a lot of people get stuck in the concept.
Exactly.
But if we practice, so we meditate during the day and then we study some, meditate and study.
Correct.
Or maybe we go through a month of meditation and a month of study.
Correct.
But we have to keep coming back to the actual practice.
Actual practice, definitely.
And then the practice verifies the studies and we go deeper in understanding.
Exactly.
And it points us deeper into our practice as well. So
very good. I fully agree. Yes.
And one other point I noticed you were talking about how something about how religions, spiritual views, I can't remember what you were talking about, but the point I noticed that came up for me was when there's a repetition of an idea, let's say, of God, it's been repeated for thousands and thousands of years, and people believe it, probably partially due to repetition, but also when there's a group that is practicing a religion, there's a feeling that because of our human nature, there's a feeling of connection and inclusion and safety in numbers. So if we're a part of a religion that has a lot of adherents, there's a feeling of well-being in that because there is this mutual togetherness, which is human nature.
Correct.
So we may equate that with truth. We feel this good feeling and
kind of
feel
safe.
This is truth.
Yeah.
This is true. So
that's the thing. That is the safety, the feeling of safety, the togetherness.
Yeah.
I am not alone. So there are many others are with me. So you feel confident.
So that's part of the views is that having it repeated many times and having following many people gives us a feeling that this is the true
Correct.
thing.
Correct.
But at the same time, that when we are a part of a group like that, there are many other people holding views that are different groups. So there's this aversive feeling and feeling of antagonism
Correct.
towards the people that are opposing us.
Opposing
say,
us.
you're wrong.
Correct.
We've got the right.
Correct.
So this is also a part of, I think,
Conflict.
the conflict where Buddha isn't depending on any of these things. It's just on, you and reality.
Correct.
Can we connect with reality?
Yeah, and the other thing that probably you can remember in the Madhupindika Sutta, when Dandapani, the Shakyan, approached the Buddha, so he's asking, what is your view from the Buddha? And what he points out it, so my view is something where which is completely free from any kind of debates, any kind of arguments. So that is my view. So his view is something kind of a view where people, you won't get into arguments, you won't get into debates, you won't get into quarrels.
There's nobody to argue with.
Nobody to argue with. So this is my view. So typically what happens is, when we adhere to a view, so that on the other hand strengthens the ego, strengthens a person.
Yes.
It gives a lot of confidence and it was safety, and you start representing something and you feel valuable. Yeah. I am a member of this society or this group or whatever.
Yeah.
So the ego is further highlighted, further strengthened.
Yeah.
So then you can easily argue with someone.
Yeah.
Easily you can be teased and you can get into argument.
Yes.
Because,
and we as Buddhists need to be careful of that, because we are a part of a group, and we just take that as that's enough. We feel good and we have the right view. We need to practice.
Definitely. So that's why Buddha, when pointing out, those are the things probably we can discuss further. So what is right view? Samadhi. So what Buddha is pointing out. So now Buddha in that right view was part, say the mundane type of right view, he already explained based on the kamma and understanding, okay, you believe in this world and all that kind of, that being a good person, the wholesome side. On the other hand, when he is explaining the supramundane side, so that is where understanding all this, understanding the true the kind of non-self and all that deep teachings, it's a matter of abandoning things now, relinquishment of the things, not holding on to anything, including the views.
Yeah, and our observances and
everything.
Yes.
So in essence, he simply say, nothing is worthy of attaching. Sabbe dhamma nalang abhinivesaya. So nothing is worthy of attaching.
Yeah.
So that you can't say when you are in the mundane samadhi, the mundane side, in the laukika samadhi, still something is there for you to sort of represent. So I have my mother, I have my father, I need to say help them. Then I have to concern about the future life. I have to concern about my activities because they produce certain kamma. Now that means that you are grounding on yourself, grounding on something.
Yes.
That is something that we need to understand.
Yes.
But later, when you start development of the vipassana, by thoroughly going through the insights that help you to abandon slowly, relinquish, letting go the things. Yeah. So there the letting go becomes more smooth, natural, and there the mind is the more concern. Yeah. So the mind is not attached with anything. Mind does not grasp anything. Mind does not hold anything.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes. So we're still need to follow the law.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Go and sign up for our visa.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the convention. So we have to respect the convention. We have to respect the government's laws.
But at the same time, we're letting go
Exactly.
Attachment to our sense of self.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I mean, we'll see whether we can discuss further, taking a few more suttas onto this topic. And so this is the end of our side questions. Shalika, we can come to your side.
Okay, Bhante. I'd like to invite Geshan to present his question.
Saranai Bhante, it is good to hear your voice after 3 weeks almost. It was like not trying to be able to participate, so I had to listen to some of your recordings. But it was good to be a part of this conversation as well with Dhamma visitors. I really like those discussions too. So from today's discussion, one of the observations, what I thought, when you talk about these views, the wrong views, of course, we also have certain type of wrong views, I guess, and I think you also brought up a conversation with Buddha, having this conversation with Dandapani, the Shakyan, and Buddha itself says, my view is not to get into an argument. So that itself isn't that a view too? Just sort of, when you sort of brought it up in that way, to ask that question.
So then someone is coming and say, okay, I want to come up with an argument with you. They'll say, no, I am, my view is something I am not going to into argument.
Yes. So I thought that's just an observation, but I understand the sort of premise of that talk, and I really like that as well.
Yeah.
So
actually,
I'm
this
also thinking about, we as lay people have different views of how to bring up our kids, or how to be in this society to do certain things. But then we sort of have certain type of framework to be, and I have always thought, when you really think about the day-to-day living and to apply some of these, it is somewhat really impossible. So the easiest way for me to sort of think about to be in this moment, rather than thinking about all these different type of how to sort of live within this framework. But the way for me to sort of think at this moment in time, how can I be present? Is that a good way to sort of approach?
Actually, being in the present has to become more natural. So at the beginning, it appears like kind of purposeful, where the mind constantly trying to drift to the past and the future. So that's why it is more effortful. So we are using the establishment of mindfulness. So we are selecting a certain present moment activity, and again and again we are applying our mind to that activity. Ultimately what happens is mind get used to be in the present moment, and so that now we don't even need such activity. Now actually not only through the mindfulness, later actually that has to be supported by wisdom, abandoning all the grasping. So ultimately the mind doesn't need to grasp even. Now it doesn't need any present activity to hold, so that it is being in the present. But even without holding any of the present activity, still mind remains in the present. That's the interesting part actually. So more and more the practice has to be sort of effortless. At the beginning we may need a lot of effort because the mind is not tamed. Mind has a great influence coming through the hindrances. But as we continue our practice, hindrances have to be slowly weakened and wisdom has to be aroused more and more, which helps to abandon the grasping. The mind become kind of being in the present without holding on to anything, and again in a more effortless manner. So then we don't need to ask the question how we are going to keep the mind in the present, because now it has become a kind of a habit of the mind. I am not saying it is happening immediately, but this is the path that Buddha is saying, showing. At the beginning you need a lot of exercises, lot of meditation exercises to train the mind. But once it is trained in a more effortless manner, so mind has to be in staying in the present moment.
Yes, I think yes, definitely. I feel that is what's happening, but then there are times that it just goes in a certain rabbit holes as well, and then you have to ask the question.
Correct.
Where is it?
Correct.
Where are you?
Yeah.
What are you doing to yourself itself?
Correct.
Very good. Thank you, Bhante. Thanks for this advice as well.
Okay.
Tunuran Saranai.
Yeah, Tunuran Saranai.
Ananda, you can present your question.
Yes, thank you very much for giving the opportunity. And my question raised little while ago, the previous questioner, he's asked, Hamduru, your voice was listened after some time, and end of the day I'm not claiming any of that, but do he try to express his attachment to Hamduru, Bhante, and against that I have several words propping up in my mind. There is free sign, there is a Sanjata Sutra, then free of our all attachments, then we have to weaken our hindrance. Then again, in recently you are trying to explain very expressly Antadasana state. Then again we have to maintain the Kalyana Mitra all together. So my question is, with this all positive minds or negative minds, how can we try to maintain some kind of a balancing this with our day-to-day spiritual life?
Good association is something motivates us, inspires us in the Dhamma. So that is actually something Buddha has recommended, and Buddha even mentioned why monks are to be followed him. Now Buddha is telling, okay, why you are coming after me, why you are associating me, not because that the Buddha is there, that the monks are being easily supported in a materialistic way. That is not something that Buddha promotes. But he say, okay, that there are certain discussions, there are certain good topics that he time to time talk. So that is why the disciple may associate the teacher. So I think the same tradition we also have to follow. So we as a group going through the Dhamma, learning the Dhamma, practicing the Dhamma, so we are having a discussion, helping each other, promoting the understanding, and it's a kind of an inspiration, because it needs some sort of inspiration to continue the path, kind of encouragement to continue the path. So I am not saying that one has to attach to the teacher, attach to the person. Rather, it is a kind of a mutual support that we are trying to have in a kind of a discussion.
Yeah, yes, but my point is, we are lay people, and this balancing is
difficult. Not only for lay people. I mean,
I try to explain my weakness.
I think you are always thinking, okay, we are lay people, the monks can do it easily. But now monks also have so many duties. So I am also now trying to balance my things, because so many things are there. So how to balance? So that is actually the challenge. Now, if we think that, okay, I have to abandon everything, I have to be in utter isolation, I have to be in utter seclusion, that is in a way going to one extreme. On the other hand, if we are crowded with so many things so that you have no place even to breathe, there is no time even to look after yourself, that is going to another extreme. So we have to find our balance. We have to find out, by getting involved with certain activity, you are in a way giving an opportunity to understand your defilements, because people are there. Whenever they are, you might get sort of belittled, or you might get hinted, you might get praised. All those possibilities are available, so that we can easily understand defilements. So that is one advantage we have. And on the other hand, by dealing with people, again, we might get carried away by thoughts, thinking, mundane activities, mundane incidents going through in the society. So that disadvantage is also there. And again, a fair amount of time is consumed. So many things are there. So finding the balance is the point. As you properly point out, it is the challenge for everyone, not only for lay people, even for the monks. Finding the balance. So how much I am going to get exposed to various activities, to how much I am going to get involved with the activities, and how much I am not going to get involved and completely mind my own business. So this is the kind of a balance that we need to find out. So ongoing adjustment that we have to do. We can't find out a clear-cut mark telling, okay, this is the balance, this is the balancing point or line. Rather, every day we have to do adjustments so that we are maintaining that balance.
Bhante, thank you very much for your continuous support to keep this balance within us. And hope we can, Lord can achieve one day, whatever we wish. Theruvan Saranai.
Yeah, Theruvan Saranai. Sharika, seems no more questions, right?
Yes, Bhante, I don't have any written questions
either.
So, before actually, since you mentioned about your responsibilities, I thought of actually reminding another responsibility you have been doing for us for over 3 years, the clarity of mind through mindfulness session. So I thought of actually reminding our participants about upcoming event. It is going to be on May 17th. It's a Friday at 9:30 p.m. It's a US time, and it is May 18th, Saturday at 7 a.m. Sri Lankan time. So I know some of the participants have been joining our session. If anyone interested in joining the session, you can email it to me. It's mindfulnessinus@gmail.com. Let me put it in the chat. So if anyone interested in joining, it's a monthly session that Bhante has been doing on various Dhamma topics. It's not using all the Sutta. And if anyone interested, you can write it to me on this email.
Yeah. So there's another hand raised. Mahisha, you can put your question.
Thank you, Bhante. I thought I will give a brief update about my practice. Now, usually listening to Dhamma talk at least once a day. Previous Dhamma talks, like taking up some other sutta, I do, and then the whole day try to be mindful and watch what mind is doing and where it's tangling, and when talking with someone, monitoring like where it's running, and watching that sometimes it's concentrating on the topic that is being discussed, and then checking on like, are you tangling with or are you disagreeing with certain things inside the mind. And then when I have to talk and put up a point, then watch on that, like in what way that I'm going to the mind is like trying to figure it out. So it's going on like that, normal conversations with people. And then with the like social activities, kind of like when people are inviting for things like, oh, let's do this, do that, or go there, and the functions and stuff, like figure out like, oh, is it really needed, and how much of time I'm going to put in there, and what the mind will do in that case. So try to refrain, like if it's not worth, and if it's something like not going to help out, or if the mind is going to be crazy because of that particular event where I will be thinking of going. So try to not to participate actually, and then watching like whether having any regrets about it, whether the mind try to complain about it, like you didn't go there, so you lost this and this and this. So try to figure out whether it's complaining about it, and if it's so, then figure out, okay, so you're going to be so crazy, and then try to attach to that more, so that then it disappears, that thought. And then sometimes people invite for like when priests visit these days, because it's May, a lot of priests visit here from other countries as well as from Sri Lanka, and then people go on like kind of crazy, and then they offer dana, and then having dhamma discussions or this and that. So people invite, whereas would say some dhamma friends, they invite, oh, can you come, and I'm going to give a dana to this place, that place, so it's this far, that far, so you come at this time. And then again the same thing apply, no, are you really interested to go, are you going to keep that time away, and try to let the mind go crazy and run around, and are you going to listen to those, and then try to argue about it, what you have heard, are you going to do that, and how many days then you will need to recover from those, what you have seen and what you have grabbed inside to you, and are you really need to go for it, can't you say no, and like that. So mind figure out, and then deciding, okay, I'm going to tell honestly, I'm not interested now. And so I did actually decline that kind of 2 events. Two of my friends invited me, and actually one I declined after talking to another Dhamma friend, like sister situation, people inviting, and then I really don't want to go because I know it's going to like taking some space in my mind, and I don't want to. So it's going on like that, and I thought I would ask whether that's something okay, or do I really have to put myself into those and then please the others, or say, okay, yeah, because you come to a thing done or something when I invite, so I have to go to yours. So that's the system, in the society. So anyway, I managed to, without any compromise, to decline those 2 invitations. Probably they will not come back to me again. So that's the way it's going, and I always try, mind always assess things. I'm having actually a bit of a concern, like assessing really, do you need it, and then declining things or refrain from it. Is it something usual, or is it going too far? That's what my question is. But thank you.
Yeah, I think assessing is required, but sometimes people usually talk about non-judgmental awareness. You don't need to assess, you can simply non-judgmentally go through the whole life. But I can't believe in that, I can't take that in that sense. There is a point in the non-judgmental awareness during your practice. Practice in the sense, say for example, you are watching your mind, and there are different kind of thoughts are arising, wholesome thoughts, unwholesome thoughts. But what you need to see is how they are coming and going, how they are rising and passing away, not giving any kind of a like to wholesome and unlike to unwholesome, or the vice versa. So there you are having a kind of a non-judgmental awareness. And similarly, assume that you are doing Vedanānupassana, different feelings are there, and pleasurable, painful, equanimous. There also you don't have any kind of preference, but you are maintaining kind of a equanimous attitude. So that is kind of non-judgmental awareness in the practice. But on the other hand, when we are going through certain activities in our life, definitely we have to have some kind of a choice, a proper choice. If we put too many too many things into us, then we can't handle. So therefore I feel that we should have some sort of a common sense to understand what is correct, what is wrong, and to say no to certain things and say yes to some other things. Say for example, in the Buddha's time, and suppose that Buddha being invited for some activity, we can't say that each and every activity he has accepted. Say for example, that Punna, one of the servants in the I think Anathapindika somewhere, I mean she invited Buddha and he accepted. But then the king came and asked him to participate in the dana, and Buddha denied. So likewise, there's a choice. There he is using the proper kind of proper selection in a way, proper choice, and depending on the situation, he take the correct choice. I think the same pattern that we have to follow, not simply allow the blindly go through the life. Rather, we have to choose what is correct, what is wrong, and in a way that is one part of the mindfulness. So mindfulness basically defines in the Nagaropama Sutta, Sati dovariko bhikkhave ariya sāvako akusalam pajahati kusalam bhaveti, savajjam pajahati anavajjam bhaveti. Particularly mentioning, okay, the mindfulness like a gatekeeper, the function of that is to abandon unwholesome and to continue the wholesome, and then to abandon what is wrong and to maintain what is correct. So therefore I think what you are doing is correct. I can agree with you.
Okay, Bhante, thank you very much. And one more thing to clarify. Anything comes up, like sometimes the mind itself suggesting, oh, you do this, you do that, organize this, organize that, and have fun, things like that. And then again another thought comes, are you really? And what about what happened to your mindfulness practice then? And can you manage yourself at that time, what you're going to do?
Yeah.
And then the answer comes, I don't think it's going to work that way, and you will be so crazy, and the mind will run around, and then you will take days to sit and get back your practice to this state. And are you really need? And then deciding, no, I'm not going to do that. So everything, that simple exercise happens for everything. Even my thoughts come saying you do this, then that thing works. Like the way that I said, like it's asking, okay, what's the gain out of this? Is it contributing to your mindfulness, or is it disturbing your practice?
Correct.
If it's so, so it's like it's giving an analysis there quickly, but
quick analysis.
It happens so quickly.
Correct.
That the answer comes, no, you're not going to do that. So try to refrain from it. So as you said, like it's like the watchkeeper that putting things like, oh, it's not word. What's the word for you? Are you getting anything out of it? Or are you going to go and like Swaminatha says, like madedano, the pure cloth going to be in the mud. So that's actually come to my mind, and then try to reverse me.
Correct.
Okay, you don't have to think about it, and completely forgetting that, seeing thereafter.
So basically that is
again.
Basically this is exactly what is mentioned in the fourth sampajanya. you know that there are 4 different kinds of sampajanya, clear comprehension explained in the Dhamma. The Sattaka sampajanya, Sappaya sampajanya, Gochara sampajanya, Asammoha sampajanya. So Sattaka sampajanya. Before or while you engage in a particular activity, you are trying to figure out what is the purpose of it. Is there any real purpose of doing it? Sattaka sampajanya. Then Sappaya sampajanya. Is it a suitable task? So you are giving a kind of a quick analysis. Is it really a suitable task that am I going to do? Sappaya sampajanya. Then Gochara sampajanya. So while engaging in this activity, is it possible for me to connect it with my practice? Am I able to continue my Kanupassana, Vedanupassana, Chittanupassana, Dhammanupassana while engage in this practice, while engage in this activity? So you are connecting that activity to the practice. Gochara sampajanya. And then the Asammoha sampajanya, so that is going further deep, where you are not making a self out of any of these activities. So you are doing it for the sake of maybe as your duty, as a kind of gratitude or whatever, as a responsibility, but knowing that these things should not make any kind of unwholesome impact on yourself and grow any kind of defilements. So you are maintaining that mindful space without making a self. Seeing all these things are, aggregates simply operating. So like that you are using certain insights to avoid any kind of I-making, mind-making, etc. So I can therefore relate this with your argument. I can relate with these 4 sampajanya. This is something recommended by the Dhamma.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bhante.
Okay.
Very clear to me.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then we have spent 1.5 hours today, and now I like to conclude the teaching, and we will share all the merits with celestial beings, whoever passed away relatives, and again whoever in need of merits. And we wish these merits help us also to understand the Buddha's teaching, practice it, and realize the Nibbana in this very life. We recite the traditional verses. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadam
Sabbadevanumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiyam. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadam. Sabbe bhutanumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiyam. Ettavatacha amhehi sambatang punya sampadam. Sabbe sattanumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiyam. Akasakaj bhumaka deva naga mahidika. Punyang tangan moditva chirang rakantu sasanam. Akasakaj bhumaka deva naga mahidika. Punyang tangan moditva chirang rakantu desanam. Akasakaj bhumaka deva naga mahidika. Punyang tangan moditva chirang rakantu mamparang. Idang vonyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyateo. Idang vonyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyateo. Idang vonyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyateo. Imina punyakammena mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hotu yavanibbana patya. Imina punyakammena mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hotu yavanibbana patya. Imina punyakamena mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana patya.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.